Hello everybody, welcome back to a new video. We're doing a Cuban cigar today, a lovely Cuban cigar. Just a quick note on how everything's going. Quite well. My cigar supplies continue to grow. I'm going to have lots of stuff to keep reviewing week on week, which is great. It's about 11 o'clock in the morning on a frosty Friday. It's a cold day, very cold. I'm in my tent, obviously, doors closed. We've had some crazy weather this week, bad winds, hail, snow. So hopefully it calms down a bit going into this weekend and next week. I've got a nice black coffee here. And yeah, we have a Cuban cigar. Let me put my coffee down. I don't know why I picked it up. I wasn't even planning on drinking it. We have here, and this is a cigar I've done on the channel before, years and years ago. This here is a H-Upmann half Corona. Now these are a very small cigar. I believe they are 3.5. They might be 3 7/8 by 47, I believe, or 44, maybe. I think maybe 44. They're not a big cigar. They're quite a quick smoke. I think for me, I just picked 5 of them up at a good price, a really good price. Matches for today. For a really good price. They are about 19 to 20 pounds a stick in the UK, which for the size of that cigar, I mean, it's not worth that much. They're nice cigars, right? They are good. I'm hoping this one, it looks quite tight. I hope it draws okay. Good draw. These have arrived just today, so I haven't sat these down. They do already have about 2 and a bit years of age. I think September 2023 is the box date. I only picked 5 up. The angle is a bit lower for those who are wondering. I'm trying something a bit different with the angles. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, September 2023 with this H-Upmann, which that's a good couple of years. You know, we got, you know, two years and what's that? 6 months, 2.5 years. I don't think you can really complain at 2.5 years on a cigar, Cuban cigar. These cost me £10 each. European prices, more or less. You're looking at, you know, about 8 to 10 euros for this cigar. Did not give me a splinter down. Yeah, you're looking at about 8 to 10 euros for this cigar, generally. And for that, you don't mind. So £50 for the 5, very happy with. We're gonna get this lit. I used some matches yesterday and I quite enjoyed it. And with literally 0 wind in this tent, it should be perfect for a little match light. There's something nice, ritualistic, I suppose, about using a match. I could have maybe just used 1 match here. And then just to make sure it burns well, just a far away jet flame. Take a puff. That's lovely. That's lovely flavour. I mean, straight away you hit with that kind of Cuban twang. You know, Cuban cigars, every single one has that flavour. and I don't know if anyone actually knows what that flavour is. There is a certain je ne sais quoi with a Cuban cigar. There is a certain flavour profile. And then there's just lovely rounded sweetness, nice slight nuttiness, and a bit of cedar wood. Lovely, just lovely flavours. And I know for a fact this will have a little bit of development in it, even for a small cigar, which I think is why a lot of people do like the half Corona. For me, there's 3 cigars of around this size. You have the H-Upmann half Corona, you have the Monte Cristo Media Corona, which I believe is the exact same size, and I think the Media Siglo from Cuba's a 50 ring gauge, I think. But then you also have the Petit Royale, which is a 3.5 by 47. That was a wonderful cigar. This is probably the lightest of the 3, and probably my second favourite because I really like the Petit Royale. The Petit Royale's just got a bit more robust, medium-bodied flavour that you'd expect from Romeo and Julieta. Let's take a sip of this black coffee. It's lovely. It's just a very nice cigar. And let's talk a little bit about aging. Cuban cigars and aging, and New World cigars and aging, and the whole concept of aging while we smoke this, because this isn't a cigar that I don't think we really need to sit here and cut the video into thirds and stuff. It's not a big cigar. It shouldn't last me more than half an hour, really. So we can just have a chat. And I want to talk about aging. I've actually been in a couple of arguments with people, so other cigar people about this, about aging, and Cuban cigars and New World cigars, and that type of thing. And the crux of my point, let's preface it actually, I prefer New World cigars to Cubans, but if you had me choose 3 cigars, as I can only smoke these, 2 of those are Cuban. Which sounds weird. I prefer New Worlds, but my favourite cigars are Cubans. I have a New World in there as well, but yeah. And the reason is that for me, there is much more versatility and availability, supply, and importantly, good pricing on the New World side. New World cigars have a whole breadth of different flavours. They are all and massive variances in strength. You know, a cigar from Esteli in Nicaragua is very different from a cigar from Ometepe in Nicaragua. And then, you know, from Jalapa in Nicaragua. And then you have, you know, farms in the Dominican Republic and Honduras, Peru, Mexico, Cameroon in Africa, all the way down to, you know, Java tobaccos. I had a cigar a couple of days ago that was from China that used Chinese tobaccos, and it was a wonderful cigar. And so there's this whole breadth of New World cigars out there. That are very available, that you can go and buy, and there's just always new cigars to try. And for someone who loves to buy new cigars, try new cigars, I'm someone who smokes a lot. I smoke about 2 to 3 a day. On average, some days I'll smoke 5 or 6. I've had 9 or 10 in the past on rare occasions. For me, being able to get good stock of stuff is important. And then on top of that, pricing. Now, I'm not even just talking UK pricing. The UK pricing for cigars is astronomical. But, importantly, even in Europe, pricing on Cuban cigars is still higher than your New Worlds. You know, this cigar, while lovely, I could get New World cigars that are bigger than this Toros, that are lovely cigars. The Oliva Sirio, the whole Habano cigar, beautiful smoke. I can get 5 Toros for the same price. You're looking at value here. That's a lot more tobacco for your money. And it's something that I'm going to smoke more regularly. I'm going to go for that Toro. This is very nice. So that's the basis of where I sit. But for Cuban cigars, there is the subtleties in Cuban cigars are wonderful. The sweetness that some Cuban cigars give you is amazing. And there are Cuban cigars that I have had that have just been amazing. I've had a Cohiba Lancero. I had one of those once. I've had one ever. One of my top cigars. A regional edition for the UK years and years ago, the La Gloria Cubana Britannicus Extra. A beautiful cigar. Candy floss is what I remember one of my friends said about it. An amazing smoke. You know, just recently I had a Diplomaticos Cancilleres, and the new Diplomaticos in the Robusto size. I got 2 of them. I smoked one at the pub with a friend of mine. What a wonderful cigar. Brand new, no age on that cigar. Basically no age. We'll get to that in a minute. Bolivar number 2 I had yesterday. Really, really good cigar. So I smoke Cuban cigars, and I smoke them less often than a New World, but still weekly. I'll have a couple of Cuban cigars a week. Given I've got the stock of them in, I have a couple of Cuban cigars a week. Cubans for me tend to be more mild. They don't tend to have that strength. Broadly, there are Cuban cigars that do have a little bit more strength in them. Ramon Bolivar, Partagas, depending on which one you get. Romeo and Julieta I find quite medium-bodied. You know, even Juan Lopez and San Luis Rey and San Cristobal. Those brands they're not as light as your Hoyos, your H-Upmanns, your Cohibas, your Diplos, which I find quite light. A lovely, like a toast note, like a toast, like toasted bread. That kind of very, very tasty, like kind of a bit buttery as well. Very lovely. You know, I find Cuban cigars generally mild to medium, never really full. I have had full Cubans in the past. Partagas Short, I'd say, is a full cigar. The old discontinued Bolivar number 3s. Some of the regional editions, but broad, normal production, mild to medium. And I prefer a full-bodied cigar most of the time. Obviously, it's the morning, first cigar of the day. A mild plus cigar like a H-Upmann Half Corona is a brilliant choice. Let's move on to aging. New World cigars, the tobacco from the New World. Any good high-quality producer, your AJ Fernandez's, your Garcia family with my father and La Roma de Cuba and whatnot, your Davidoffs, your JC Newmans, your Hoya de Nicaraguas, your Drew Estates, your Alec Bradleys. These companies, they grow the tobacco, they ferment and cure the tobacco, then they age that tobacco in big bales. They age that tobacco. Perdomo famously ages all their tobacco in barrels for a little bit. And most New World tobacco, good quality New World tobacco, Plasencia, I forgot to mention them. Normally you're looking at minimum of at least 1 to 2 years of age on that tobacco before it gets rolled. And a lot of places try and do 5 to 10 years of aging on their tobacco. The big producers, Plasencia, I think 5 years is the earliest tobacco, and that's from their Reserva, the white band. I believe that tobacco is organic 5-year age tobacco. Now, there is a difference between the aging of bundled, unrolled tobacco and rolled tobacco, because the flying thing, the tobacco when it's unrolled and aging doesn't ferment anymore. Really, there's no fermentation. The fermentation stops when they stop the turning. The turning of the bales, and then normally it'll get put into a storehouse to age. Obviously, it ages in those bales, normally 12 to 18 months, to remove the ammonia and to get the tobacco nice, and then they'll set it for storage afterwards. That fermentation and then the fermentation afterwards is completely different to the fermentation of once you've rolled the cigar. Once you've combined the different tobaccos together to create your cigar and you've sat it down in a box, that then, when it ages, does what's called micro fermentation, because it's much smaller scale. It's not huge bales of tobacco anymore, much smaller scale tobacco. Yeah, toast, kind of buttery toast, a little bit of sweetness, a nice kind of light nuttiness, and a nice woodiness as well. Just a great little morning smoke. So the micro fermentation is different. Obviously, it works a lot slower. But this is why I think New World producers, a lot of them, do age their tobacco a lot longer, 5 to 10 years. Because they're trying to mimic, to some degree, the micro-fermentation that occurs. Because that micro-fermentation is what rounds out a cigar and balances a cigar and allows the flavours to meld. That is why, when you buy a box of New World cigars, I've always said this, you can smoke those from purchase. You could smoke multiple of them. You could have one a week. Out of a box of 20, you could have one a week for 20 weeks. And the first one will be different to the 20th one. Now, New World cigars will age. If you put them in a box in your humidor and sit them and leave them for a couple of years, they will change. They will change. And aging is a bit of a peaked graph in that cigars age at different rates, and for New World cigars, generally you want to give them a few. If you're looking at aging them for whatever reason, I would make sure you buy boxes of 20 or 25, maybe multiple boxes, just because if you are aging them, then they're a lot cheaper than Cuban cigars. You can afford to buy those boxes, and the drop off I have found with New Worlds with aging is quite high, because the tobacco's already aged. So they only really need a couple of years when aging if you're looking at trying to reach a peak. Cuban cigars, on the other hand, are not aged at all. They get rolled, the tobacco gets rolled, they have the normal process to remove ammonia, but it's way shorter than it is in the New World. Because they've got such supply and demand issues that they've got to get cigars out and rolled. And then that tobacco then goes into a box with a box date of 3 or 4 months before it gets to you. And that's why you hear people all over the internet, and people who speak to, they say you should age your Cuban cigars. And I got into quite an argument about this, because I called it a gimmick. And it isn't a gimmick in the way that it doesn't do anything, because it does. But Cuba could release less. Cuban supply could release less and age it longer, so they're more ready to smoke. Instead of releasing loads, them getting bought, and a lot of the time scalped, bought in massive amounts, aged, and then sold for much higher quantities. I abhor people, individuals, and companies, because I know companies that do it, that buy Cuban cigars, age them for 4, 5, 6 years, and then double or triple the price. I hate people who buy regionals and double the price and sell them. If you're buying cigars to hold them for 4 or 5 years, remove them from the market so people can't smoke them, and then sell them on, it's not on with me. This is a hobby, a community where we're meant to be smoking, enjoying cigars, you know, having a good time, not scalping cigars, hiding them away, and then like rinsing people 3-4 times the price of that box when it came out. I remember asking for a Bolivar. Was it a Bolivar? Yeah, Bolivar Regentes. They came out. They were £45. They're like £100 a cigar now. If you want to buy anywhere, secondary market, £100 for one. That cigar came out 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, something like that. That's at 100%, 100 and a bit percent increase. It really grinds me gears. I really dislike it. Very nice cigar. I'll keep saying that every time I smoke it. Despite that, there is credence to aging Cuban cigars. Cuban cigars will, with even just a year or 2 years, generally, rule of thumb, taste better. That said, I've had cigars brand new, Cuban cigars brand new, few weeks on them, that have tasted wonderful. The Diplomatico I had, the Cancelleras, wonderful. And I've had really aged cigars that have tasted horrible. I had a Monte Cristo No. 5s from 2013. I had 2 of them. I didn't pay much of a premium on them, so it was a good price. So that's 13 years of age, 12 years when I smoked them, because this was last year. 12 years of age. And honestly, mid cigar. 12 years of age. You're expecting something massive. People say 7 to 10 years for Cubans. People say 5+ years. People say 2 years. For me, I think a couple of years, 2 years, is a really good place for a Cuban cigar. And after that, while it might improve, the amount of improvement drops off. It's one of these curves, I forgot what they're called, where it picks up, like the value degrades as you get higher for the time put into the amount of improvement. Like year 1 of aging, you might be getting a 50% improvement, and then it might go up to from 50% to 80% improved in year 2. But then year 2 to year 3 might be 80 to 86. And then it just slows down. Generally, obviously not always the case, but generally, rule of thumb, this is what I've experienced through smoking thousands of cigars. And the case in point I have on these are 2 years aged, 2.5 years aged. That for me is a great point to buy a Cuban. If you find a Cuban cigar in a shop and it has 2 years on it, you're going to be in good hands smoking that cigar. Because I think 2 years of a Cuban cigar, you're going to be getting 80-90% of the way to what it tastes like properly fully aged. You know, it might be a little bit smoother, a little bit rounder, you know, a little bit sweeter with another 5 years on it. But do you really want to sit on a box for 7 years? You could be smoking those cigars and then buying new cigars to smoke more. Now, if you have thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds to buy 4 boxes at a time, and then 4 boxes of one thing, you know, if you could buy 4 boxes of 25 half Coronas, and 4 boxes of 25 Petit Royales, and 5 boxes of D4s, and a cabinet of Siglo 2s. And if you have the money to do that, sit them all away and then rotate your boxes. And if you've got the money to do that, you know, good, you do that. That's fine. For most people, for your average smoker, you can't do that. I have a modest collection at any one time, around 100 cigars, 100 to 120 cigars. You know, not a huge amount of cigars, not a massive amount. It stays around between 80 and 100 as I smoke and I buy new stuff and I replace the stuff I'm smoking. I'm not going to sit on Cuban cigars for years and years and years. If I want an aged Cuban cigar really badly, I will look and try and find and buy it. I'll go to a shop, my local tobacconist sometimes has aged stuff, and I'll look, see what they have. But that's it. You know. And I think generally people kind of talk about Cubans as they're the greatest cigar. They make the best cigars. Everyone's palates are different. I would respectfully disagree. But I like Cuban cigars. I smoke every cigar for any country. And I think there are New Worlds that rival a lot of Cubans. New World brands that I smoke them and I go, this is better than a lot of Cubans. Now my palate is definitely geared towards that medium to full body, heavier smokes and Maduro wrappers and that type of thing. That's what I want. There's not a lot of that in Cuba. And also a fan of the larger ring gauge. I like a 52, 54. I like a 60. I like a 70 ring gauge, even an 80 ring gauge occasionally. None of that in Cuba, obviously. And then again, the availability of and the price of a New World to a Cuban. I've got nothing against Cuban cigars. I think sometimes when I'm talking, people think I hate Cubans. That I think they're shit. I'm smoking a H-Upmann, half Corona right now, and it is a wonderful cigar. I'm really enjoying it. Honestly, I can't think of a better morning smoke, honestly. Very few morning smokes rival a H-Upmann half Corona. You know, a Siglo 1 or a Siglo 2 perhaps. Like 3 times the price. You know, this isn't really a review as much as it is a chat. This is easily a 9 out of 10 cigar for me. A cigar I would happily buy a box of. I've bought tins of 5 before. That's the great little Cuban cigar. Great for the morning. And they do pick up in strength. You know, I'm getting a bit more, like a little bit of white pepper spice on it, and kind of a stronger woody note, and that Cuban twanginess does pick up as you smoke through the cigar. I mean, I suppose I should do one of these for it if I'm saying it's a 9 out of 10. You know, hats off to H-Upmann and all that. They are a great cigar. But as I said, I've got a review of this a few years ago. I don't know what my thoughts were then. Probably quite similar. I was inside, different place, different me really. It was like 3-4 years ago, that video. It is up on the channel still if you want to go watch it. I think it is anyway. But this is a wonderful smoke. But yeah, Cuban cigars, you know, if you can get them at a reasonable price, go ahead. They are good cigars, they're good smokes, and, you know, but don't focus hard on Cubans, just as you shouldn't focus too hard on specific New Worlds. Smoke everything. There are so many cigars out there. There are thousands of different brands and lines. You know, hundreds of different seed and wrapper varieties. Probably hundreds of thousands of different specific blends. Go try them. Go out, try them. You might not like them. I've had cigars, I've gone, this is shit. Not good. Loads of times. I've had bad cigars, I've had to throw half of them away. I've had cigars. I had a La Aurora 1903 Connecticut the other day. Yesterday? Wednesday it was. It was Wednesday. It was fine. There wasn't much to it. It was okay. I wouldn't buy it again, but it was okay. You know what I mean? And you'll have those type of cigars. You'll have cigars like that bloody Bellicosa that I had put up on the channel a few weeks ago. Horrible. You know, I've got cheap, short filler Dominican cigars that were like £4 a cigar that aren't very good. You know, they exist. I smoke them. Sometimes they have their place, but you know, I smoke anything, and I think you should. If you really want to develop your palate, to be able to taste different things, to be able to objectively sit and think about a cigar, like I do, where you sit and you taste it, you taste everything, and you get the flavour notes. You've got to smoke the cigars. You've got to have the memory recall for other flavours. If you don't have that, flavour wheels and stuff exist. But just smoking cigars and picking up one flavour from a cigar is enough. Because what happens is then the next time you smoke a different cigar with that same flavour, your memory goes, wait a minute, I got chocolate from the New World Decennial that I smoked. You know what? Chocolate's lovely. That's a great flavour, and I'm getting it from this cigar I'm smoking now. Or, oh, I got hazelnut on this cigar. I got citrus. You know? And that's how you build up your palate. You smoke cigars and you just pick up a note. Or you pick up two notes. And then when you smoke different cigars, they remind you of those cigars and the notes you had, and then you pick more notes up. And slowly you build up a palate. Where eventually you smoke a cigar and you go, well... And if you're thinking about it, because not all the time, I don't think about the flavour notes every time I smoke. Most people don't. You smoke, you go. Nice. And you continue on doing what you're doing. You have your coffee, you have your chat, you scroll your phone, whatever you're doing. That is what most people do. But when you do want to sit there and have a think, and you take your puff and you go, and you're trying to think. And you go, oh no, I'm getting this, I'm getting that, I'm getting this, I'm getting that. That's why when I smoke a cigar, and I'm doing these reviews, I can quickly, like that, get this note, this note, this note, this note. I've smoked well over, I mean, if we're talking about 2 cigars on average a day, you know, let's say, on average, 8 cigars a week. Right, because there were weeks where I didn't smoke in the past and stuff. 8 cigars a week for 7 years. You know? 8 times 52. You know, you're looking at 416. 416 times 5. 2,000. You're looking at 2,800-ish cigars. You know? Quite small numbers, reasonably, but I'd obviously, you know, give and take a couple hundred cigar variants. You know, probably between 2,500 and 3,000 cigars, I'd say I've smoked lifetime. And that's not including, like, cigarillos, little tiny cigars or anything like that, which I have smoked more of. And I've smoked a lot of cigars, and my palate is how it is now because I've smoked them. And in another 10 years, my palate will be even better. And I'll know exactly what I want when I'm buying cigars. But even now, I go into a shop, I stand there looking at a humidor list, looking at all the cigars. I've got no clue what I want, ever, because I want new things. I always want a new cigar when I'm buying. I want to try new things, see what it's like, get new flavours, find something I really like. If I find something I really like, I can then buy packs of 5, boxes of 10, boxes of 20. I've just had a box of 20 AJ Fernandez de Serio arrive yesterday. I had one. It's a wonderful, wonderful smoke, really full-bodied. A cigar I want to do a review on at some point because it's so good. I have a short out if you go on the shorts page. I have a short out of it. Wonderful smoke. Anyway, I think that's all for today. Bit of a ranty one, bit of a chatty one. Bit of a review on this cigar, I suppose. It's 9 out of 10. It's a H-Upmann half Corona. You can't go wrong with a H-Upmann half Corona. It's a good cigar. Go buy some. If you've never had some, go pay the 20 quid. Go to your local tobacconist. See if they've got them. If they've got them and they're selling them in boxes, try and get them out of the boxes. And get the date. If you can find some with a couple of years on, 2 years is all you need. Find one that's got 24, 23 or 24 on it. You know, find one that's got February, March 24 on it, or earlier. And pick up 1 or 2. You know, and try them. Because they are good cigars. Yes, you're going to be paying 20 quid a cigar, but, you know, if you've never had one before, that's going to be the easiest way to get them. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed. I hope you've enjoyed the chat. I hope you've enjoyed just the general vibes. I'm going to finish this, finish my coffee, then have some lunch, then probably come out for another cigar, knowing me. But I hope everyone has a great week, great weekend, great rest of your day, great evening, whatever you're doing. Have a good one. Stay smoky, folks. I'll see you later.